Good afternoon and welcome to Today on BayTV. We're live in Swansea on Monday, April 10th, 2017. I'm Henry Darby-Cook and this is Gaynor Morgan.
And later on in the show, we'll be speaking to Bryan Lewis, Antonio Devries and Darren Brohmam-Nichols. But first, let's get on with what happened on this day. We've got with us Robert Llewellyn-Jones and Keith Milward. Thanks for joining us both. And I think we're in august company today with Robert Llewellyn-Jones. Can you walk? Your wallet is heavy today.
Yes. The gods smiled on me on Saturday, and I had the winner of the National, which was...
How are you going to say how much you put on it?
Oh, no, gamblers never tell you how much they... Well, they never tell you how much they lose normally, but...
It was clearly... No, you've been outside the Prince, weren't you, before the Grand National?
I was... Saturday was such a lovely day, Gaynor, and we sat outside the Prince, and I was hatless, as you can see, from my bald pate, and...
And some of us were too busy to stop. There we go.
Yes.
What about you, Henry?
Yeah, it was a chilled one. Yeah, didn't do a huge amount, sat on the balcony just soaking up the sun.
Oh. It's all right for some, isn't it, Keith?
Oh,
there we
sounds
go.
good to
You
me.
had a busy weekend, didn't you, Keith?
Busy. Went to London to see 42nd Street. Yes, I've got the brochure I'd like to show you. We'll talk about it later.
Talk about that later,
yes,
but,
absolutely.
sounds very
Wonderful
exciting.
time.
We obviously caught the sun a bit there, but there we are. What happened on this day in history then, Henry?
We've got some great ones today. We're going to start in 1633, where bananas went on display in Thomas Johnson's shop window in London, and this was the first time fruit had been seen in Britain. That can't be right. Obviously, fruit had been seen in Britain, exotic
the
fruit.
Elizabethans were very fond of fruit and all. But
But
bananas,
must wonder how on earth they kept those bananas edible, having transported them from the West Indies or from South America or wherever.
Would have been a very long journey, wouldn't it?
It would have been a very long journey. And how did they do it? And what state were they in when they arrived?
They'd have been very green. They'd have picked them very green, wouldn't they? I would have thought. I wonder what they made of the first bananas when they saw them in England. It would have been England, wouldn't it?
The Britons love bananas today.
No,
They're
yeah.
very, very popular. I'm a huge fan of bananas. They're actually...
Potassium, aren't they?
Yeah, is
good
it something where if you eat 8,
Yeah.
you can die from
I think you're not
overdose of
supposed
bananas?
to eat more than one banana a
Well,
day,
in
are you?
Barry, we had fifes.
You lived on bananas, didn't you?
Had quite a big
It's famous, yeah.
base there and a port. And the banana boats that sailed from South Wales to the West Indies took passengers.
Yes, I know. A friend of mine went.
Yes,
Wonderful trip.
Yes, it's a wonderful trip. And they were very highly sought after, for people. It was like not a poor man's cruise by any means, but it was quite a novel way of getting to the West
Sounds
Indies.
fantastic.
And and Barry was one of the great banana ports of Great Britain.
Well, staying with that, I bet you didn't know this. Despite it seeming very unlikely, Wales have been grown open air in bananas have been grown in Wales
I've
open
seen
air
it.
since 2007.
I've seen the tree in Aberglasney Gardens. And did you know that once it produces the fruit, the tree dies?
There we are.
A bit like us poor parents trying to fund our children through university and the housing ladder.
I'm thinking of Carmen Miranda now with all the headdresses with bananas. We've done bananas.
I actually saw the tree when it was producing the first banana, and there was all sorts of anticipation. Would it ripen? And it did ripen, but the tree does die once its fruit has been produced. I suppose if you think about jungle conditions and what have you, that is what would happen, really, isn't it? Things sort of flourish and flower.
There is a brand, if that's the correct word, of banana, which is called an Ecuador spotted dick.
Okay.
And they are I believe they grow in Ecuador, at least I think I'm told that they do, or there is that.
I wonder who gave it that name, but there we go.
I think the average person eats 2 or 3 bananas a week. Well,
Okay.
I have more than the average because I have one with my cereal every morning.
What is it? And
That's
also
why
it's
you
a
look
great...
so young, Keith.
I wish,
But
I
it's
wish.
a great healthy filler, isn't it? It's
yes.
more filling than an apple or something. And if you're hungry and you just want to fill the gap before the
You
meal.
want to be careful, mind, eating that number. You don't start peeling them with your toes. And,
But I think the banana isn't actually a banana, is it? What we call a banana. I can't remember the name for it because the little smaller one is the actual banana.
Okay.
But
Is it in the...
it'd be a better story if I could
In the
remember
plantain
name.
family?
There we are.
Is that, am I correct? Yes, yeah. Just before
That
we
might be
leave
the name.
bananas...
That might be the word.
It might be. Just before we leave
Before
bananas...
we all get bananas,
I
yeah.
think we've got a video to make us go bananas.
Oh.
Here it is.
That's rather fun, isn't it?
It's different.
Did you put that together?
I didn't know.
Surprise, surprise.
Yes, we have
I
no
don't
bananas.
know if I like the fact you assumed that was me getting there.
Oh, no, you're just so clever. Sorry. No, I thought, who would have the time and the diligence to put all that stuff together? Sorry.
Moving on.
I know I couldn't have.
1912, the British-built luxury liner Titanic set sail on its maiden and only voyage from Berth, 44, White Star Liner dock in Southampton, bound for New York.
Oh, it's horrible, isn't it? Horrible to think about those people setting off.
and the rest is history.
Well, yes. But it was built in Belfast, wasn't it? I think you can... Isn't there a
Yes,
tour?
well, they
you
still
can...
have the Titanic. They have now made the dockyard where the Titanic
Yeah.
was built into a wonderful tourist centre.
I remember flying into Belfast once and
really
it
quite
was pointed out that you
something.
could, it's quite impressive.
And Wolf, wasn't it?
Yes.
The ship
Harland
there,
and
the
Wolff, yes,
Harland
yes.
and Wolff. It's 1,500 died. Is that right? You know, it's and I
A
think
ship
it's
that could never sink.
That's the unsinkable ship. They called it that. You know, it's. I know you'll laugh, but there's a tremendous musical version of Titanic, and it's very reverent to what actually happened. You know, people often will laugh that there is a musical Titanic, but it
Yeah,
won
it doesn't
several
seem to-
awards
yeah.
and a tremendous piece. But it's as well as it being a very how can I say, jubilant musical for the first half, because, of course, it was thought of such a big thing. It was such a wonderful invention, this ship. And the first half is about celebrating that. And then, of course, the second half is the disaster, you know, and the rescuing on the lifeboats. There were too few lifeboats, and that was the big problem.
That was just-
A lot of corners were cut that we obviously found out.
And they were racing, weren't they? They wanted to be the first, the
Yes.
fastest to get across. The film was fantastic, but I didn't go to see it. I was nearly drowned once and had to be revived, and I just wouldn't be able to cope with it. I couldn't go and see
Which one
something
did
like
you
that.
see? The
I didn't go and see it. The
Titanic?
kids told me.
No, the which?
Leonardo DiCaprio.
DiCaprio.
Yes,
There was also one called A Night to Remember.
Oh, was
yes.
That was an
That
earlier
was
version
good.
in black and white,
Yes.
wasn't it?
Johan Griffiths was in one, wasn't he?
There's a
Second.
TV version with Catherine Zeta-Jones, and that's ever so good.
Well, I wouldn't want to watch it.
And they sang Nearer My God to Thee as the ship sank, which was quite
But
something.
the musicians did play.
That's right.
What else
the
did you
ship
do,
was-
I suppose? You know, keep morale up. Well, you got a nice story.
I don't know if people will say it's nice, but in 1970, Paul McCartney announced that he was to leave the Beatles for personal and professional reasons. Can you remember this? Obviously,
Didn't they all blame Yoko Ono, or did they just blame her for everything?
I think she was blamed for a lot.
Yeah, I
What year was Lennon shot?
it's a long time after that.
It was
Yeah.
after that. It was after that, was it?
No, but it was a big shock. It sent shockwaves through the music industry, through the fans, everyone, even people who weren't particularly fans. Everybody was. Do you remember, Keith?
Such an impact, yes. Reading about the Beatles, I realised that, you know, one of the members was Ringo Starr was going to leave, and Paul McCartney did the big move, really, to be the first one to leave. Such a shame, isn't it, that they didn't continue for longer, you know, because they had such an impact on our music.
Magical group. But I think it's like a lot of things. You can have success too quickly, too young, and not prepared for it. And I think they probably weren't prepared for all the mechanics of sticking
Well,
together.
McCartney's a very shrewd operator,
Oh,
I
yeah.
think, and of course that's why he's worth the money he is today.
And so was John Lennon. It's just his life was cut
Yes,
short.
yeah.
They were around for 10 years together, and really their music evolved during that 10 years. If you think what they were making in the 1970 to what they've been doing earlier in the 60s, it's quite different. It's Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, you know, and when you think about Can't Buy Me Love, quite different
very
sounds.
different. Yes, the way they developed. We were very lucky, weren't we,
Oh,
to
yes.
have lived through that era.
Fantastic
I think.
times.
It's not the same now, you know.
It's not. It's definitely not.
Haven't got the talent.
After the break, we're going to do our paper review, and both Robert and Keith are going to be staying with us.
So we'll see you then. Look forward to it. Welcome back to Today on BayTV. I'm Gaynor Morgan, this is Henry Darby-Cook, and we're back with our daily look at the papers.
Robert and Keith are still here, and just before we get onto the papers, I think, Keith, you're going to tell us about your weekend. And
yes.
Was it last night, the Oliviers?
Yes, the Olivia Awards were last night, and Harry Potter and the Cursed Child swept the board, really, because they were nominated for 11 awards and won 9. Oh. It has actually broken records. And it won the Best New Play, even, and then Best Actor and Best Actress and set design, lighting, you name it, costume. You know, they won all these awards. And rightly so, the friends who've been to see it are mesmerised with the staging, the magic. I haven't seen it, you know, because it's only recently I found that there's music in it, and now that now they're attracting me. Because the musical, the best musical, Groundhog Day, and you'll note that I reported on that in the middle of last year. We were very lucky that it was at the Old Vic in London for about 2 or 3 months before opening on Broadway, and within the next few weeks it's opening on Broadway. So Groundhog Day, and Andy Carl, the leading man, won the Best Actor in a Musical. Now, Jamie Parker won the Best Actor in the Harry Potter play, but Andy Carl with the musical. The best revival of a musical was Jesus Christ Superstar, and I can say this time, rightly so, because it was a new take on Jesus Christ Superstar, quite harsh in its portrayal. It was more like the film, The Passion, if you remember the film, which was quite showing the horror of Christ's death then, you know. But there was something there for everyone, because School of Rock did win an award for achievement in music. Kenneth Branagh had a special award of the Oliviers, so it must have been quite a night in London. You know, do you go to London?
Were you there for the award? You were there?
No, not for the awards. I saw 42nd Street on Saturday, and that it really is a tremendous show. I think this time next year we'll be talking about awards going to for the best revival to 42nd Street. That's in Theatre Royal, Drury Lane.
Because the theatres in themselves are an event, aren't they?
They
Just
are.
to go to some of these
Of course,
old
Catherine
theatres in London.
Zeta-Jones starred in that.
Yes, it's a matter of about 30 years ago now that she was catapulted to stardom, really, because of 42nd Street. She, this time, in a different role, playing Dorothy Brock, is Sheena Easton, who we'll remember from the pop charts, and she impressed me that she was able to sing soprano as well as to sing a full belt, you know. But a company of 48 dancers, tap dancing flat out. It really was something to be seen. I was moved to tears twice. It was such a joy.
Yeah.
Would you say the theatre is a weird one, but would you say it's more accessible now? Because when I go to London, I'm always kind of around Liberty and in Soho and Chinatown, and obviously that is where all the theatres are.
Yes.
But is it still...
Well, despite recession, they say that London theatre is thriving. You know, there's more people going to London theatre now than...
You can get these coach trips, can't you? You can go buy a coach trip and you get your ticket with it. Wonderful, and as you say, a fairly reasonable price, really.
Yes, yes, yes. We're lucky in Wales that we do have some of these productions coming to us, sometimes the Grand or the New Theatre, but of course we've got the Wales Millennium Centre now, which takes the biggest of productions. So, but I'm hoping that they will sometime bring the Harry Potter play now around the country, because that often happens. They will have a tour of the play as well as the London run running simultaneously.
Exciting times.
Yes, it is. We never really asked you, Robert. Is it something? Are you a theatre fan?
Well, I'm not a musical fan. Keith is a fanatic, I think. But,
An aficionado.
Of course, I've spent considerable time in the theatre as a school teacher once, and taking pupils to various productions of plays, classical plays, some modern plays, of course. But yes, I do like to go to the theatre whenever I can. In fact, I have to admit, I don't go enough.
Yes, there's
I think that's
nothing
probably
like
the
seeing a
case
good
with a lot of
play.
people, isn't it?
Nothing like seeing a good play. I actually went to see the Mousetrap once in the theatre in London, and that I think Dylan Thomas said about the museum here, didn't he? It's a museum that should be in a museum. Well, that theatre's a theatre that should be in a theatre.
It's still running. It's
You
still
know, it's
running. It's
wonderful.
about the 60-something year. I went past the theatre on Saturday, and I was reflecting. I saw it in its 39th year, so it was in its mid-run even then.
Wow.
Incredible.
There we go.
Should we go to the papers?
I think we should get back away from the frivolity.
We'll start with the Times. Obviously, huge amount went on this weekend. Britain to push for tough new sanctions on Putin. We must punish Russia for their support. It's all... I mean, we spoke about it on Friday. We spoke about it on Thursday. Everything going on in Syria. It's
frightening, isn't it?
It is.
Very frightening.
There's a very interesting picture in the Times above the story where the Prince of Wales and the two royal princes are sitting in a line with their dark glasses that bears a strong resemblance to some sort of mafiosa gathering.
I think they'd been to Vimy Ridge, hadn't they, to commemorate the battle.
Yes.
So, you know, that serves as a reminder, really, of what happens once you start unleashing these... I don't know what to say, really, but Russia and Syria now are threatening America, aren't they? Retaliation, saying America's crossed a red line. And one of the papers is saying, you know, it's the generals are running the show in America. I don't know.
I don't think the Americans, I don't think Trump is too worried about what Syria can do. I mean, Putin is a different kettle of fish, as they say. But I don't think it does bring back memories of the Cuban Missile Crisis for those old enough to remember that, Gaynor.
That was frightening at the time. I was a child.
It was frightening at the time, and but I don't think that Putin is going to risk, you know, conflict with America over a man like Assad in Syria.
Robert, what do you make of? Obviously, it's been reported that the US told Russia 2 hours before the attack, this is what we're doing and this is where we're doing it.
Yes.
What do you make of those kind of tactics?
Well, it's a strange form of détente, isn't it? You know, this is what we're going to do. What are you going to do about it? And the Russians did nothing about it. One American commentator said, "Well, they didn't do a really demolition job on the. They fired these 50-odd Tomahawk cruise missiles, and the runways were still operable."
Well, they got the runways back up and running.
Yeah.
But there's the one theory, isn't there, that it's a sort of, I don't know, preparation or practice run for Korea. Who knows? The other interesting aspect, of course, is that Boris, did he decide not to go to Moscow, or was he prevented from going? And, of course, Michael Fallon, the Defence Secretary, has been really the mouthpiece of the government on this. You know, one wonders how much faith Theresa May's actually got in Boris in this sort of situation, which is quite worrying in itself.
Well, perhaps it's the wrong time to send a foreign secretary to Russia when you have this conflict, and perhaps it's just as well that Johnson didn't go.
I think it probably is, because these meetings have to be very nuanced and rehearsed, and they're very, very carefully constructed, aren't they? And Boris Johnson, for all his talents, doesn't really...
Well, if you're going to have a meeting or you're going to have a confrontation between politicians, I would have thought that the Security Council in the United Nations is the place to do that, rather than perhaps...
I keep saying about the United Nations, you know, it was stronger.
Well, let's just all hope and pray that there are no more of these chemical attacks, that's all, because for the people on the ground and those poor children, it's... well, what can we say?
Isn't bear thinking about.
Have we got another topic too?
Yeah, we could quickly talk about the electrification is a no-go for the Valley lines. I think this is in Wales Online.
£125 million, wasn't it? Well, had been pledged.
But it's a no-go, no £125 million.
Well, all these wonderful things that are going to happen in South Wales, electrification, city regional development. We're waiting here in Swansea now for this great city deal that's been signed, we can only believe it when we see it, and that will mean the money's provided.
All down to the pounds, shillings and pence. There we are. Thank you. Next, we're going to welcome to the sofa Bryan Lewis, who's written Memories of a Llanelli Boy.
See you then. Welcome back to Today on BayTV. I'm Henry Darby Cook and this is Gaynor Morgan. We're now joined by Bryan Lewis, who's written Memories of a Kneffley Boy.
Bryan, it looks fascinating. Tell us all about it.
Well, it's essentially a book about my childhood, about growing up in Llanelli, my early childhood, my teenage years, and a little bit about my family history. And the things that we used to get up to as children, which is so different, I suppose, to what kids get up to today.
Completely different. But it was an era, I think, that certainly, Robert, you and I would remember. Great freedom.
Well, yes, indeed. Very happy. It was a great time to be alive, I think, in the 1960s, the late 50s and the 60s. I don't remember much about the 70s. I was married by then, and that avenue,
well, enough said,
that avenue of happiness was partially closed, you might say.
We'll skirt over this. I think a lot of this is the 50s, though, isn't it, Bryan?
It's mainly 60s and 70s, actually. I was born in 56.
It's just the black and white pictures, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you still remember a bit of the 50s.
Oh, absolutely, yes.
People go on about the 50s, but I thought it was a bit of a grey time. I didn't like the lino and all that sort of stuff.
Well, the lino plays an important part in the author's upbringing, you know. He remembers it on the floor of his parents' home, and even in the shoes that he wore, where they were temporarily patched.
Repaired,
right,
yes.
Bryan?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
We used to put linoleum in the shoes when there was holes in them.
Yeah.
And
There wasn't much money about, was there?
Oh, no,
There was plenty of work and quite well-paid work
Absolutely.
for the times. But there wasn't people, you know, I mean, I know people are short of cash nowadays in certain sectors, but I still think people are better off in real terms than they were then.
Oh, absolutely. Maybe in terms of money, but not necessarily in terms of values and appreciation of what we had, because even though we didn't have much, we appreciated what we had. And
Well, this is a differentiation that you draw, isn't it? There's this element of social awareness, but social happiness as well.
Oh, yes, definitely.
And a sense of community.
A huge sense of community. I mean, it's a term frequently used by politicians today, you know, community care, etc. But in my youth, it actually existed. People did look out for each other and did care for
Naturally.
their older...
It didn't have to be foisted onto them. You didn't have to
Indeed.
have neighbourhood friends or carers or what have you. I was talking to some Australians last night in my bed and breakfast in Pembrokeshire, and I was remarking that the village is so safe and the children can walk down and they walk past the village green into the playground, and they're sort of looking at me and saying, well, yes. And I said, but actually that's quite unusual in British society now.
Yeah.
Whereas we grew up, I don't think our parents knew where we were, did they, Robert, from one minute to the other?
And it's the same about our childhood when, presumably Robert and I are close in age, when we were kids, you'd get up on a Saturday morning or during summer holidays, have your breakfast, and you'd go out and play all day. And you'd come back when it was dark.
We
at
had to go and
night,
work
you
on the
know.
farm, but it's the same sort of thing. But, you know, I mean, we just were out, and it wasn't necessarily anyone supervising
Yeah,
us
it
from
was
a
a
very young
free-range
age, really.
childhood, wasn't it?
You wouldn't have had that, Henry.
Well, in a sort, I played tennis at quite a high level, so it was, summers were spent
But that
playing
would have been
tennis.
supervised.
Yeah, it's supervised, yeah. But it was kind of, we were dropped off at the tennis club, me and my friends, and to somewhat, it was, free
Oh, that was nice.
reign.
You were lucky then.
Yeah, very lucky. It's kind of, you're so right, it's unheard of today that people will just kind of go off and do their own thing. Everything's done digitally.
One of the emphasis that you put on in your book is how, through play, one acquired social skills.
Absolutely. I think you learned how to handle difficult situations when you were out and about as a child. You learned how to make friends. You learned how to socialise. And these skills you brought with you in later life, so that when you worked or if you were in business, you learned how to take risks, you learned how to take gambles, you learned how to learn from the mistakes.
And you subconsciously found your place in life.
Definitely.
Without any sort of harsh knocks.
Indeed.
You just sort of, hey, but who do you think you are? You know, you sort of filtered through into where you were supposed to be.
And you learned how to handle yourself. You gained a sense of independence through playing outside. Whereas a lot of the
It was
children...
also a great time, though, for self-improvement and education, wasn't it?
Yes,
Well,
definitely.
you were a Llanelli grammar school boy, aren't you?
I was, yes.
Now, did you find then, having being a grammar school pupil, but perhaps you had friends who may have been, instead of being at Llanelli Grammar School, were at Stebon Heath Secondary Modern School.
Yes.
And that there was perhaps a difference between you?
I think the difference was engendered by the education system itself rather than the community that we lived in. Because the community, the children may have gone to different schools, but we saw each other after school.
Oh, I think that is one of the criticisms I'd level at that era. I mean, it's not perfect now, but I do think that children who went to the secondary modern school did feel a bit inferior, and it marked them really for life.
I think it
which
did.
I think doesn't happen now.
Well, I think the 11 plus was a horrendous division of children.
And if you were the slightest bit dyslexic or on some sort of spectrum or goodness knows what, you didn't have a hope. You might be fiercely intelligent. So I think that was I'm glad we're out of that.
I can totally understand young people feeling ostracised because they didn't get to the grammar school.
Well, they just felt second
outside
best.
of school, we were friends and we still
Yes, of
mixed and we
course,
still had a
of
good
course,
time.
yeah.
But yes, I'd take that on board, certainly.
But Llanelli, when you were growing up, was, you could say, a prosperous town.
Yes,
Well, it was.
Yes, in terms of the steel and the coal industry, the mining industry, the car industry, it was a thriving community. And yet there were large pockets of poverty there.
But you have got some pictures to go back to the 1930s. Henry, you're probably better at this sort of thing than me. There's a backyard of a terraced house, and it's got a horse and cart in it.
That was our backyard.
Oh, was your backyard?
It was, yes.
Wow.
Before my
absolutely
time, I might
amazing.
add.
Well,
but,
yeah, it was the early 30s.
A
but,
relative had a haulage business with a horse and a cart, and we thrived on that for
that
many years.
backyard.
So how did you go about collecting the images? Because there's some fantastic images in the book.
Oh, there are.
I was so lucky. There was a librarian in Llanelli called Mr. Prescott, who I remember when I was growing up and through school and college, etc. And when I approached the library to ask for pictures, they gave me access to his private photographic collection, which the family had donated to the library. A lot of the Llanelli books tend to have the same pictures, understandably. But with this book, I was lucky enough to have some quite unique pictures of Llanelli taken from Mr. Prescott's collection. So I was really thrilled about that.
You've got a very glamorous family, and your mum was beautiful right up to her 80s, wasn't she? But some of the headings, the headlines, biblical rain and a river of rats. What's that about?
Well, these are stories that my mum used to tell me, and there's a book out by Gareth Hughes called Llanelli Chronicle, and they're actually chronicled in that book. The biblical rain was a thunderstorm that hit Llanelli in 1926 that caused tremendous damage and flooding. And the River of Rats was a story that my mum told me about. I think she was about 12 years old walking through Stepney Street, and a white rat ran around the corner, and a police officer stood there and shouted, "Nobody move," and hundreds of rats followed the white rat down Stepney Street towards the old castle. And they believed it was due to the culverting of the River Lady that took place at that time. So there's lots of strange but true stories in there about
were they
the
all
20s.
literally following this one white rat?
Yes, it's a.
what
They
they
say,
do.
I've never seen it myself, of course, but they do say that it is a phenomena that happens. That perhaps not sort of in a rural community like yours, where you have, of course, rats in the farm and so on. You were brought up with them.
Yeah.
But where you have
don't like them.
in industrial towns like my own home in Merthyr Tydfil, and they move towards the river. If there is a river there, there's like a migration of these rats,
right.
and the white rat is the leader. And then they mean business when that's... So if you get in their way,
I wouldn't like to come across
as Brian
that.
says, then you're in trouble.
Brian,
Absolutely.
who did the cover?
It's a painting that my brother
Absolutely.
created from a black and white photograph. Yeah.
Lovely, really, really inspired, I think, and it sort of some of the era was a bit grey, wasn't it? It sort of lifts us up from it.
But the 60s and the 70s made up for it in many ways.
Oh, you weren't there if you can remember it.
I do.
Robert, do you...
Well, I'm full of admiration. we're going to have a longer chat later about the,
So
the compilation of this book. But, you know,
in the closing seconds, where can we buy it?
It's available in local stores in Llanelli, the New Dock Post Office and Street Post Office. It's
Great.
available in shops in the market.
A
and
must-buy, I
ISBN.
think. After the break, we'll be welcome Antonia Devries and Darren Brohmam-Nichols.
See you then. welcome back to Today on BayTV. I'm Henry Darby Cook and this is Gaynor Morgan.
And with us we have Darren. Darren, you're often on the sofa with us, aren't you? So we all know you. But who have you brought with you?
Well, today I've got Antonio with me, and Antonio's a bit of a legend. I was becoming a bit of a legend in Port Talbot. So I often talk about Neath, and this time I'm going to talk a bit about Port Talbot and what's going on down there.
Port Talbot's a legend in itself, isn't it, Antonio?
Yeah, well, it's got some legends living there, you know, and I just want to thank BayTV for having me on here today, you know, straight out of Port Talbot. High five.
I'll go first.
High five.
High five.
Yeah, cool.
Well, you've got the lingo, but you haven't quite got a Port Talbot name, have you?
No, I am got Port Talbot because my father was Welsh and my mother's Italian, so I lived in Port Talbot. I love Port Talbot. I think it should be the capital of Wales, really.
It's a very friendly place, I have to say.
It is a friendly place. I mean, we got some real characters there. We got some talent, and that's why I'm here, really, just to tell you all about the talent.
But it's really, Port Talbot is known for the steelworks. But you're on a mission, aren't you, to change the reputation of Port Talbot?
Well, I think the steelworks is like, you know, our history. You know, we don't want to go away from steelworks. There's hard-working people in Port Talbot. They've worked hard there, and it's just like, you know, there's a new generation coming through.
You've got a new ambition for Port Talbot.
Yes.
And what's that?
To make it the capital of Wales.
All right.
You know, we want some big acts to come out of Wales. We want some big acts to come out of Port Talbot. Like, I started when I was very young. I come from a broken home and that, and, you know, it's not a sob story. It's just one of those things, you know, every sort of teenager probably be able to, you know,
yeah.
You know, it's sort of, you know...
It's not unusual now,
it's not unusual.
And we're
you know
into
what I mean?
blended families and all the rest of it, so it's not a talking
So I just started
anymore.
dancing because I wanted to be a part of something. So I used to take my lino uptown, put it out, dance.
Your lino?
It's like a piece of lino from the kitchen. They don't have lino no more, do they?
We had it back in the 50s.
They still got it in the top. They still got lino in the top. So
yeah, okay.
anyway, I used to get the lino out and put it in the town centre and do some dancing, annoy all the people shopping.
What age were you then?
At 12, 13.
That's extraordinary. Oh.
It was really good.
We've just been told, is that lino dancing?
No, it's not. No, it's not lino dancing. It's street dancing.
I couldn't pretend to have thought that of myself.
Yeah. That was like our dance floor, see the lino. So, you know, we used to get moved along by the police, but the police used to join in sometimes. You know what I mean?
No.
Yes, there was a heavy police presence then because, you know, back in the day, you know, there was more sort of jobs about.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, they're cutting back now, it's all cameras. But, you know, the police used to join in, it used to be great.
You can dance in front of the camera.
Yeah, we do now.
On a serious level, you've got a lot of talent in your family, haven't you?
Well, I think it's talent in all family. All children are talented. It's not, my kids are not super talented. They just, you know, I'm a single dad. They come to live with me, the three of them. I had nothing to offer them, really. You know what I mean? I had debt. Like, well, not everybody.
We all got debt.
Yeah, we all got debt, yeah. I had a lot of debt. I can't iron, so my kids were always creased.
Don't need to iron.
To me, I know. But that's all I had to offer, really, was music. So,
I love.
So I've got my children into music, you know, putting videos online, and one day I when things were really bad, I wrote a song from it's Hopeful, the song was, and I got my little boy into rapping, and before that, though, my oldest boy, Joseph, he wanted to do some singing because he used to play the piano in the church and he used to sing songs in church, and he had a really good voice, so I thought we're going to push him forward, so I started doing videos for him, teaching him how to dance and that. He got no coordination, by the way. I don't think he ever rode a bike, but he's probably listening now, sorry, Joe, but he's a nice kid, and I said to my children, which was a bit bizarre, when I was in Jersey Key, we had nothing. We counting coppers in a jar to get bread on the shop. That's how bad it was, you know, and it's not a snob story. That's the truth. No one was supporting us. My family was, but they only can go so far, you know.
A lot of us have had times like that.
Yeah, I know, but it's something good came out of it, you know. Joseph joined the boy band and he done Wembley. You know, but before that, I said to my both children...
That's amazing.
I said, you're both going to do Wembley. I don't even know why I said that's crazy. But my oldest boy done Wembley twice in a day, 25,000 people. It sort of freaked me out. You know, it was unbelievable. You know,
to have the presence to be able to
do that.
Yeah.
It was. And then he helped my other little boy then, Leandre. You probably know him from Bars and Melody. He took him on tour with him, give him a bit of confidence, and then we put him on BGT. And when he went on BGT, obviously, you know what happened. Simon Cowell pressed the golden buzzer and, you know, our lives were changed then, you know, to a certain point. We went over to the Ellen show in America because they had 22 million views in a week. And it's all from a song that was written in Talbot at hard times.
I thought I was the only one who didn't know what BGT meant, so I didn't ask you to explain.
Well, it's a talent show.
Yeah. What's the proper name of it?
Britain's Got Talent.
Right.
Yes. You know, I know a lot of people say about Britain's Got Talent, X Factor, that, you know, they this and they that, but it's a good platform, you know what I mean? I'm all for it. Any platforms you want to take. I used to take my children outside a fish and chip shop, singing to people queuing for pie and chips to give them that confidence. I used to take my boys to London, and times were so bad, I used to hide in the toilets and they used to have the seats. And, you know, if I got caught, you know, I would have been thrown. I know exactly, you know. So, but that's
But it worked.
It worked, you know, it did work. And, you know, we've had a lot of support from the Welsh people, do you know what I mean? And that's why I'm developing acts now from Wales, you know. I've just taken a girl now called Olivia from Cardiff. I've seen her in a local talent competition. I've developed her. In a couple of months' time, she's going to be doing Wembley O2. I've got 3 Italian girls from Swansea, the Romanellos. I'm developing them. They just come in so good, you know what I mean?
Is this all happening in Port
Yeah, all in Port
It's great to see, to be honest. The energy that's coming in at Port of course, it's a heavy industrial town, you know, and what it's telling a message to those children. Actually, you know, think out of the box. You know, you haven't got to work in heavy industry and you haven't got to manufacturing because it's just not there. But there are ways of getting out there. And of course, with modern technology, these days it's so easy, you know, to share a video and reach the whole world, you know. So this weekend, I think you may have a video that I went down and watched one of these videos being produced in Port Talbot. It was a glorious day as well.
Yeah.
And just
I think we can share it, probably.
Yeah.
Give me all that you've got now. Make you want me crazy hard now. I'm gone, so faded from all one. Bang, bang, pop up like a long gun. If you lame, you ain't making no noise. I get ready to turn up with the big boys. Live fast, die young, that's my choice. Get money like a
In Port Talbot, do you hire a room in a pub or what do you do?
Well, because the people in Port Talbot are so supportive, you know, I'll just go to people, like, I done one video and we needed a coffin, so I went to Undertaker and said, look, I know it's unusual, but can I have a coffin? They give us a church coffin candles, and they actually give us, you know, coffin bearers as well. So, you know, people do support when you're doing things, you know, trying to push the community forward. People do support, you know, and we do give things back. Like, I know my little boy, I had 4 children. One died of leukemia when he was 4, and my kids are aware that they've never met him. But my little boy, Joseph, you know, he's got popular through, you know, doing Wembley. He's just come off tour with Little Mix. He done the Get Weird tour. He smashed. I think he's the best on it, to be honest. He should be the headlining, Little Mix underneath him. Then Nathan Sykes. That's what I reckon anyway, you know what I mean? But,
You're not biased in any way.
no, he done 17 arenas. He smashed it. He was amazing. He was so proud. I cried every time. You know what I mean? I cry all the time. So.
Well, you're Italian, so it's allowed.
So he done a walk, he did, from Port Talbot to London for Great Ormond Street, you know, to give something back, and he raised £3,500. It's a long way. He's never done, he can't even walk to the shop.
So is this his profession now?
Yeah, he's a singer now, and this is his profession. He's toured everywhere. He does his own tour.
So what's your message to people who might be watching this, who might think that one of their youngsters has got some talent, or just quite quickly?
All children got talent, and I just think, you know, we are busy, but we need to take time, because children are the next generation. They're the future. We need to enhance what they're going to do, because we've had our lives. It's all about our children. Don't give them an iPad. Don't give them an iPhone and say they're cool. They need to do stuff. You know, you need to get out there and do it. Really, that's my message.
Your message, just quickly. How do youngsters get involved?
Dream big, aim high. Do you know, aim high? Yes. Definitely.
Yeah. And do they get in touch with one of you, or what?
Well, I've obviously got Twitter, I've got Facebook, and Tony Devries one. Just hit me up and then we can sort something out. You know, there's loads of opportunities for all the youngsters, you know, especially, you know, the Welsh kids, because they are full of talent, you know what I mean?
There's one thing dreaming, you've got to put in the hours, haven't you?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, definitely. Make it happen.
And there are... Yeah.
No. And there are vehicles out there. There are vehicles out there to make that happen. Like Antonio here.
Yeah.
You know, and it's not just the people you see in front of the camera, it's the whole team behind the camera.
Absolutely fascinating, isn't it?
Thank you both.
Yeah.
Thank you to all our guests today, and thank you to all our viewers for watching us, especially those who have tuned in for our Talking Pictures afternoon matinee coming up next on Bay.
Today, it's the 1944 war film 2,000 Women, starring Frank Launder.
And with that, we'll see you tomorrow.